This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's going on, real MVPs, and welcome to another episode of What's Your Fantasy. And I have got a funny story for you guys.
Episode 5.5, basically.
So here's the thing. So Ricky and I, we had started, we were going, we were 11 minutes into the conversation until Ricky says something back to me, and I'm just here like this. We were not recording. And whose fault is that? It is this guy's fault.
Well, the camera was recording, but that's not good audio.
The audio was not recording. I was literally sitting here, and then I moved the mouse like this, and I'm like, ooh, I moved this for the first time just now, and I saw there was nothing recording. So every once in a while it happens to the best, as of course we are the best in the business. It happens every once in a while. So that definitely happened to us this time, but it does allow us to do a little bit of housekeeping here at the beginning, and it starts off with, you can help support the podcast by becoming a patron. Head to patreon.com and you can support a number of podcasts on MVP, but $10 a month will get you on a podcast. You can come on here, talk with...
Be the first one we have on here.
With Ricky and I, talk about fantasy football. You can talk anything you want with fantasy football. You bring the topics, and we will talk with you about it. So you can definitely do that, or go on a number of other podcasts. We've got the Primetime Podcast. We've got the Fast Break Podcast, the Onside Kick. We've got the Rick and Johnny Podcast. We've got so many things going on here at MVP. Also, you can go to mostvaluablepodcast.com and you can get an MVP t-shirt. You can go to the store for that. We have got MVP t-shirts, and they're good t-shirts. I'm promising one day I'll wear it. And
I thought you were going to wear it this week.
Forgot to do that too. Forgot to start recording, and forgot to wear my shirt.
It's just been one of those Mondays. A manic Monday for Brandon.
It has been, and I've been under the weather, still am. So I'm just, the head was a little cloudy. It's been cloudy for the last week, but definitely go and check out the MVP t-shirts, and then go and hit up iTunes and give us that 5-star rating. Again, I don't know if iTunes yet has confirmed the What's Your Fantasy podcast.
Too Old to Game just got the email back that they're on it, so it's not a fact of will we be accepted. It's just when we get that email saying that we are accepted.
So when that happens, we'll let you know so you can go and do that. But until then, I'm hoping that you are also a watcher and a viewer of a number of other podcasts like the Primetime Podcast, Fast Break, the Onside Kick, Rick and Johnny, all of those. Go and give that a 5-star rating. So there you have it. Brandon Swanson, along with Ricky Widmer.
What's up?
And we are here for another episode of What's Your Fantasy, and we are very excited as Ben Roethlisberger just throws a 44-yard pass to Juju Smith-Schuster.
Are we excited for that?
Very excited to talk about how our team is doing so far this week, Ricky. And Ricky, I'm going to give it over to you like I do every week as we start the podcast, and update us on how we're doing.
First, I have to update you guys on last week because we left you not knowing the Monday night game, and Trey Burton and Allen Robinson screwed us, basically. Well, they helped out Kyle. Kyle, congratulations to you, got the win. But we lost 135.3 to 136.1, so not even a full point. 0.8 is what we lost by, and it was not basically, if we would have played Will Fuller instead of Ted Ginn, probably would have won that game. But that's one we cannot go back to. We are looking forward. And when you said, we're excited for Juju Smith, I am in our personal league, but I'm not for our league because...
No, I wasn't saying we were excited for Juju Smith. Okay. I was saying we're excited to get talking about it, and then I just saw that happened, and I went to that instead.
That's not good for us. Jake's got Juju Smith. We got Fitzmagic, and we got to hope that... that Fitzmagic wand is working tonight because he's got to keep pace with Juju, which technically is right now, because if that happens, we get the win over the almighty Jake that everyone thought, even myself, was going to run away with the league. But I guess Tom Brady is mortal, and Jake's team is mortal, as the Jaguars did not have a great game this week as well. But right now we lead Jake by almost 10 points. after the first quarter of the Monday night game.
I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that.
Except for Calvin Ridley being on our bench with 40.5 points.
Yeah.
If we would have played him, game over. Jake's not even a conversation right now.
Yeah, well, that's the same for one of my personal leagues. Is I had Calvin Ridley on my bench. I had
here.
Michael Crabtree on my bench. I had a number of guys on my bench, and if they would have been in my starting lineup, I would have nothing to worry about right now. But right now, I'm clinging to a 3-point lead. I need Deshaun Jackson, and I need Peyton Barber to not do much.
See, I'm in a sticky situation because in our personal league, I don't need just D-Jax to play well. I need Juju Smith to play well. That's why I'm saying in our league, I need Ryan Fitzpatrick to match Juju. Like, if Juju gets 20, that's great for me, but Fitzpatrick then needs like 40 points so that we can just win this game and win confidently. But the one thing I want to say, because I'm not going to let you get away with it, although the mics were not recording, when we weren't recording, you had something special that you wanted to say about somebody on our team that you have originally given me flack for drafting.
Oh, yes, when we were pretend recording.
When we were just playing pretend.
When we were playing pretend. We just wanted to make sure that everything seemed right.
We were just playing radio, Brandon.
We were just being idiots. I had said that, as many of you know, it's documented because I had said I didn't think that Ricky was very smart for picking Adam Thielen over Mike Evans or the likes of Tyreek Hill or guys like that. And I still to this point don't know if he was that smart, but it has not hurt us to this point. As this past week
it definitely helped us.
14 catches for 100 and some yards for Adam Thielen and 24 points. So I did say to Ricky, not too bad. It's working out so far.
I only know
working
this.
out so far.
I only know this because Jake had him this week. It helped us this week. Because if I went Tyreek Hill, we would have 7.6 points instead of 24.5.
Yeah.
It's okay, Brandon. It's okay to feel the Thielen. I will let you feel the Thiel with me. So we're both feeling the Thielen here on MVP.
Okay, that's weird what you just said, but we'll go with it.
That's how it is. You're feeling the Thielen when you're feeling Adam Thielen.
So Ricky, update us on how the running backs do. We know how the wide receivers did or did not do, the ones that we played and did not play. But how the running backs do this week?
I still have a question about Lamar Miller. He's got 14 points for us. Todd Gurley is a beast. Todd Gurley is our workhorse, but I wonder if after next week will Mark Ingram then be our solidified number 2 running back.
He may have to be. I mean, you look at Lamar Miller, and actually his past week, 14 points is actually really good because at the end of the day, if he didn't have that touchdown, it would have been a terrible week. He was not finding anywhere to run against the Giants defense, which is really surprising.
He only had 10 yards on the ground.
I mean, he was terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it was bad. It was really, really bad. Their offensive line is not very good. So for him to get 14 points, that's pretty impressive for Lamar Miller.
But I mean, I was telling you when we were pretend recording, we might have to work out a trade for a running back after week 4 because, yes, we get Mark Ingram back, but our only running backs are Todd Gurley, Lamar Miller, Mark Ingram, and Austin Eckler. And we get Julian Edelman back. We're not going to have enough room for all these wide receivers. Also, I forgot to tell you, I can actually decline this trade on the podcast. This is what I was waiting for. We actually received a trade offer. And the trade offer was they want to give us Team Riley. So Riley wants to give us Devin Funchess. Thank you, another wide receiver we don't need. And he wants us to give him Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, no, fat chance.
What?
Yeah, he offered.
Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, he offered Devin Funchess for Aaron Rodgers. So you can react to that, to Riley. You can react to that for
Riley
as I decline it.
Riley, buddy, if you're not going to actually offer a good trade, don't offer one at all. So that's what I've got. That's what I got to tell you.
Do you want to decline or decline and counter?
What does he get?
All right, let's see. Decline and counter. His team is Phillip Rivers, David Johnson, Alex Collins, Devonta Adams. He's got Mike Evans, Jesse James, Kenny Stills, the Ravens D, Dan Bailey, and then he's got Doug Baldwin, Devin Funchess, Crowell, Cobb, James White, Eric Ebron, and Antonio Callaway.
No, I don't think I want anyone.
All right, then we're not going to counter. We are just going to decline this trade. I am sorry, Riley, but I wanted to bring that up because I forgot to.
Devin Funchess for Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. I know he's being an ass, but really, like, don't. That's not a trade.
Yeah, that's not going to get you anywhere.
That's not a trade. I know Aaron Rodgers is injured and we haven't played him in 2 weeks, but come on, give me something of value. At least give me your top running back for our top quarterback.
Yeah.
Well, really, our top quarterback. That's the thing I can't believe. Can I just say that?
If you want Aaron Rodgers so bad, I mean, we'll take David Johnson, I'm sure.
We'll take David Johnson. Here's the thing that blows my mind. I don't know what team did this, but Thursday night, I was going to ask you, should we drop Jared Goff for Ryan Fitzmagic? And I remember going to open up the app for our team, and I go, never mind, he's not a free agent. Saturday night, I looked at it, and I was like, who dropped Ryan Fitzpatrick? And I was asking Dave and Sean, because they were with me, I'm like, should I pick him up? Like, that's what I was thinking about picking up. And Sean's like, honestly, don't drop anyone you got except for Jared Goff. There's no reason why you need 3 quarterbacks. You have Aaron Rodgers. So if you don't get Goff back, you get Aaron Rodgers. And that's why we're playing Ryan Fitzpatrick right now, because I was like, screw it. I was going to do this anyways because I want to ride the Fitzmagic train until it
So you dropped Jared Goff in favor of
Fitzmagic. I mean, we have Aaron Rodgers. He should be back. I mean, Aaron Rodgers had 19 points and 16 points. He's getting back to where he was. He had 24 points week 1. So, I mean, maybe a week or two.
You think you're a really good GM. I don't think you're a really good GM.
As long as it translates into wins, that's all that matters.
I understand.
I am of the L. Davis philosophy. Just win, baby. Just win.
A crazy son of a gun?
Yeah, just win, baby. A little bit of Jerry Jones mixed in there as well, because the best fantasy owners have to have a little Jerry in them.
Yeah, what kind of Jerry? Piece?
Just Jerry.
What piece of Jerry?
I mean, Jerry's a fantasy owner anyway, so why not? Funny thing about our team, though, out of our starting lineup, only 2 of them won their game. Todd Gurley and Graham Gano, the only 2 that won their games this weekend.
Again, I'll take it. I don't really care in fantasy world if you win or you lose. I just need you to play well.
Yep.
That's all it comes down to.
That's all it comes down to.
So a team that moving forward, Ricky, may not be playing well is the San Francisco 49ers. And what terrible news that they received today. Actually, the day that we are recording this podcast is that their quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, has exactly what they feared, and that is a torn ACL. So Jimmy Garoppolo is done for the year. That is now the second ACL that they've had to endure. The first one to Jerick McKinnon, the running back that they brought in from Minnesota to be their main guy. He's going to be huge. He's going to be really helpful. He is going to have a great season. Fantasy-wise, his numbers are going to be great. He's in Kyle Shanahan's system. Doesn't even get to see the field in the regular season. He's out for the year. Now Jimmy Garoppolo is done for the year. Ricky, my question is, what do fantasy owners do who have Jimmy Garoppolo at this point and that were leaning on Jimmy Garoppolo as their main guy? And what do fantasy owners do who own anyone else on that team? Someone who owns a Marquise Goodwin, who were looking for him to break out this year, or someone who owns maybe, let's say, a Matt Breida, who was starting to look like he was probably going to be the guy. Breida even got hurt a little bit in this game this past weekend.
Questionable.
And people were worried maybe he has an ACL injury or something, severe like that because of it being I believe a non-contact injury as well. But it sounds like he's going to be okay. But what do you do? What do you do if you're right now an owner of a San Francisco 49er player, and especially if you're an owner of a guy like Jimmy G?
Yeah, first I'm going to answer what do you do if you're an owner of like a Goodwin or someone who's not Jimmy Garoppolo, because I think that's the harder question to answer. And what I would do is this next week, don't start any wide receiver from the 49ers. And the reason why I say that is CJ Beathard is now their quarterback. Unless they go out and make a trade, they sign someone. I mean, Landry Jones is still sitting there on the couch. They can go and get him if they don't believe in CJ Beathard. I feel like, because what I look at is C.J. Beathard played last year between week 6 and week 10. And if you look at some of the wide receivers, Pierre Garçon for one of them, in those, 4 or 5 games, he had, and this is PPR standard, 10.5, 9.9, 3.7, didn't play the last 2. You look at a guy like Goodwin, he had 5.2, 12, 0 because he didn't play, 8.8, 17.1, and then you also look at Trent Taylor, who had 3.1, 6.9, 6.3, 4.2, and then 0. Nothing really, except for like Goodwin might be the only guy where it's like, okay, let's see what we got here. And I know the one name that people are going to mention is Ricky. What about Dante Pettis? What I say is if you got Goodwin, if you've got Pettis, put him on your bench, see how they do with Beathard. Because Pettis had a really good week 1. That touchdown really got him. He only had 2 receptions, so the touchdown was what got him. Then Detroit, only 1 reception. Didn't even have a reception against KC. So I don't even know if he's going to be viable. If I have someone from the wide receiver core or the receiver core from the Niners, I'm putting him on the bench and I'm not playing him. But that shouldn't really, I don't think that takes away a lot from a guy like Matt Breida, because even last week he had 10 rushes for 90 yards. As long as he can get his rushing yards, maybe a rushing touchdown, a guy like Breida should be fine. I would just be worried if I had any of the receivers for the 49ers.
But what about the fact that with C.J. Beathard, I mean, you can stack the box. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's, one thing where they may already be trying to run the ball a little bit more, or may think, hey, to take the pressure off of Beathard, we'll run with Breida. Maybe he doesn't have as much success there.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of right in that, because if I go the same games that Beathard played last year, 5.6, 0.5, 15.6, 3.9, and 12.8 for Matt Breida. However, you got to think that was without, like, Jerick McKinnon was on the Vikings then, because obviously his stats don't matter for those. But maybe you're really right with that, with stacking the box. The easier question for me is, what do you do if you have Jimmy Garoppolo? To me, it really depends. Where Jimmy Garoppolo is a guy that, first off, in ESPN leagues, he's owned in 72% of leagues. So that means not everyone's got him. There are some leagues that don't even have him at all. And I'll be honest, like, looking at the pre-fantasy kind of rankings, Jimmy Garoppolo to me was a guy, unless you're in a 16 or 12-man league and you're like, I got to have him as my starter, most people have Jimmy Garoppolo as their backup. Mm-hmm. They have grabbed somebody else or selected somebody else to be their starter. So in most cases, it's going to be, all right, I got to go find somebody that is not going to be my starter, but be my backup. And in that case, I would go out and try to get Baker Mayfield. And the reason why I say that is he's a guy only had 9 points this past week, but these next few weeks you can kind of play around with it, where it's like, all right, I'm going to get this quarterback, drop Garoppolo, and kind of play around with it until your quarterback's bye. But you also have to match up that bye for the matchup, where if you have Jimmy Garoppolo as your starter, I'm going out there right now, and these are the guys that are out there that are under 6, because it's a huge drop on ESPN. It's like there are guys to 60%, and then it's Jared Goff at 61.9. Then the next guy is 35% of leagues. And the guys that are under 35, Dak Prescott is one of them, but he's not a guy that's lighting it up. Andy Dalton, he's a guy that can be serviceable. He's got like maybe mid-teens. That big game he had in the 20s. Blake Bortles is interesting. It looked like the first 2 games he was going to do well. This last week, he only had 9 points. I mean, one that may be kind of, I don't know if it's safe. I mean, this past week he didn't have a ton of fantasy points. Mitch Trubisky. There are guys out there that you can go ahead and grab and can get you some decent fantasy points, like an Eli Manning, a Andy Dalton, a Mitch Trubisky, although he had a down week this week. There's Ryan Tannehill out there that actually Tannehill wouldn't be that bad. He had one of his best weeks in week 3. There are guys out there that are not owned in leagues. It's just finding out which one fits, either if you have a starter, which one fits the bye week for your starter, or 2, which one you feel confident in as your starter if Jimmy was your starter.
You said Baker Mayfield. I want to bring in 2 other guys now.
Okay.
Josh Allen, Josh Rosen. Josh Allen he's the starter going forward. He's definitely going to be the guy for Buffalo. And I think also Josh Rosen will most likely be the guy going forward for Arizona. As their head coach said today that he is going to be replacing Sam Bradford, so he will be the starter. But a great game by Josh Allen this past week against Minnesota. You talked about going and getting Baker. Would you have confidence in going and getting a guy like Josh Allen, who probably isn't on a whole lot of teams, at least not yet at this point, or going and getting a guy like Josh Rosen, taking a flyer and saying, okay, Josh Rosen, I think that the Cardinals will be a lot more successful with him. I think Allen has already proven that he will be a better quarterback than anything Peterman would have been able to do, and that he's a guy who can run the football as well. I mean, I think that's one of the things he definitely showed against the Vikings, and that's a good defense, that he can run the football. He's certainly not afraid to run the football. He should maybe be a little bit more afraid to jump over guys like that on the defense, but I think that he showed a lot of skills yesterday. Do you go and maybe try and get guys like that to go on your team if you're looking for a replacement for a Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yes, I go, if I'm looking at those guys, the order I go in is from first on my waiver list to last would be Allen, Mayfield, Rosen. And the only reason Rosen is last is I didn't see a big enough sample size this week to know what we're going to get. Baker Mayfield, that one's a little bit boom or bust because, like I said, only 9.9 points in PPR. We don't know what kind of a fantasy quarterback he's going to be. Here's the thing about Josh Allen, and I know this is an overreaction to maybe one game, but the thing I do know is their next 2 games for sure. This is, yet again, what I'm talking about is if Jimmy was your starter. If he's not your starter and you need a bye, of course, you'll look at some of these matchups and this won't matter. But if Jimmy was your starter, Josh Allen might not be bad, especially for the next 2, and see what it is. Because the next 2 defenses he is playing is, the first one is Green Bay. Green Bay right now is the 28th ranked defense when it comes to giving up points to the quarterback. Mitch got 14, which isn't bad in week 1, but yet again, Mitch Trubisky, you got to look at that team. That was a new offensive system in its first game. Mitch Trubisky in his first game with the training wheels off. They took on Kirk Cousins the next week, and Kirk got 33.5 points in that game fantasy-wise. Alex Smith this week got 16.8. So, I mean, it's a little bit all over, but Josh Allen could have a good performance against Green Bay. Then the next team you got to look at is Tennessee, who they play right after. Tennessee is the 18th ranked, where it's kind of in the middle, but it's more favorable to being unfavorable. The guys they've given up points to, Miami, Tannehill had 13.6 week 1. That was a total different situation. That was a rain delay, 17-hour game. Then in week 2, Deshaun Jackson had 22.8, where Blake Bortles is the outlier. He only had 8.9. But that whole game, that whole team didn't look good in Jacksonville. So, especially for the next 2, then it gets a little dicey because Houston has a little bit of a better team against the pass. The next 2, though, Josh Allen, against a team like Minnesota that he came in. I'm going to double check really quickly just to see. They were the 6th ranked team against quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo only had 9 points against Minnesota, and then Aaron Rodgers only had 16. I know Aaron Rodgers was a little hobbled coming off that injury with the Bears, but the Vikings were usually really good against quarterbacks. And yesterday, Josh Allen had 27.7 with passing and rushing touchdowns. So that's why I would seriously maybe look at Josh Allen for the next 2 weeks if you need a quarterback.
Ricky, I want to keep it with the quarterbacks, but I want to move away a little bit from what would you do if you had Jimmy Garoppolo? What do you do if you have Mitch Trubisky?
Find a replacement.
Do you wait? Do you continue to wait on Trubisky? Or do you say, you know what? It's been long enough. I just am not seeing it. Or would you be pulling the trigger too soon? Would you be jumping the gun too soon? And Mitch is going to make this big change to become this fantasy stud who will end up putting up numbers? Or do you go after a guy like Baker Mayfield who looks like he could have a really good rapport with a number of guys on that team and really put up some numbers? Or go with a guy like Josh Allen who showed that, you know what, he could put up some decent numbers too. What do you do?
So for me, I personally, I don't drop him, but I bench him. I bench him because with Mitch, I think right now, I look at the, where did he go? There he is. So I look at Mitch right now, and I look at the next teams he's going to go up against. Tampa's playing really well. You've got Miami's playing very well, and then New England. Of course, they got the bye week 5, so you're going to have to find someone there. But based off of what I've seen, if you're fine with at least 14 points being the cap for your quarterback, then go ahead and play him. I don't know about you. I want at least 19 is kind of like the bottom line I look for my quarterback of like, all right, I'm not happy with that. I would like more, but if I get 18, 19, I guess I can live with that. 14 is kind of a little low. And then against Arizona, he only had 5.6. So, I mean, to me, I look at it and I go, is Mitch still a work in progress? Where he's not completely useless to me, but I keep him on the bench. And some guys that I go after is Josh Allen could be one, but the guy I target, because he's only owned in 7.8% of leagues and he's a little bit more proven than Josh Allen, I go after Ryan Tannehill. He's a guy that his points have only gotten better as the season has gone on, and he's going to play New England next, which might be a tough matchup. Then he's got Cincinnati, which might be a tough matchup, but Ryan Tannehill to me is a little bit more proven than Mitch, than Josh Allen. And I look at other quarterbacks. I mean, Eli Manning's another one that could be serviceable because, I mean, teams like New Orleans, look at how many points New Orleans has given up to teams. Yeah, they've won 2, but I mean, look at yesterday's game against the Falcons. It was a barn burner, and Calvin Ridley had 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, there's opportunities for Eli to get touchdowns against New Orleans, against Carolina, against the Philadelphia Eagles, and then, of course, against Atlanta, even in the next 4. So maybe even Eli might be a little bit more of a better pick than a Ryan Tannehill. Or I'm looking at guys like Boomer Bust. I say Boomer Bust, but he's not really like an Andy Dalton as well. Atlanta, Miami, Pittsburgh, KC. These teams that don't have lockdown defenses, and they have the potential to get, with Andy Dalton, he has the potential to get the ball back because that defense has been helping him out.
So I have a question for you specifically for my own personal
for your
benefit,
money league?
for my one of my big money leagues. So I've got Matthew Stafford. He's my starting quarterback. And I roll with Stafford. I like him. I've had him for a number of years now. Dynasty league, so I've had him for a number of years. But Mitchell Trubisky, I picked him up. He was my very last pick in the draft last year. Held him all last year. Kept him this year. The only time he'll probably play is if Stafford were ever injured, and Matt Stafford could have a broken everything. He would still play. but for the bye. Do I stick with him? I mean, I know it kind of, you gave a little bit of an answer there, but he's already on my bench.
Yeah.
He's already on my bench. Do I get another guy? Because right now I don't necessarily need someone to supplant Stafford. I'm just not quite sure. Do I hold on to Trubisky and hope that the project will finally pan out eventually? Or do I say, you know what, it's there's a project that's, that's happening a little faster over here with Baker or with Allen or with one of those guys?
Well, the first thing I'm going to look at is, so week 6 is the week you're looking for. If you're a Stafford owner, week 6 is the week that you're looking for. And that's one where I'd look at matchups. And Ryan Tannehill, maybe you don't want to look at him because, Ryan Tannehill is an interesting one that week. He's going up against the Bears. Now, Aaron Rodgers had a good fantasy performance against the Bears, but that Bears defense is, like I said, really good. You could go and get Andy Dalton. He's playing the Steelers. That Steeler defense hasn't been what it's meant or what it has been or what it used to be. Josh Allen going up against the Texans that week, that might be a tall order for him. I would probably, looking at matchups, here's what I'm thinking. If Eli's available, which most likely he could be, Eli's got a Thursday night game at home against the Eagles. That could be a good game for him. You could go with Tannehill, hoping that he has an Aaron Rodgers-like game against the Bears. I don't know, though. My odds would probably be on Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton at home at Paul Brown Stadium against the Steelers, because the Steelers, you look at, Tyrod didn't have a bad game against them. I feel bad for saying Patrick Mahomes because he's in a category of his own, fantasy this year. And then hopefully, yes, we're seeing Fitzmagic, but Fitzmagic already has a touchdown against the Steelers already in this game. So I would say maybe Andy Dalton might be your best bet to get something for Stafford when he's on his bye.
All right, we'll have to look into it. I'll have to see who is out there, who is available. And now, Ricky, we are getting into the part of the podcast where I always ask you, who did you love watching this weekend? Who did you think just absolutely for you, outside of a guy like a Calvin Ridley, which we obviously saw what he did. Clearly, you're going to be happy with that. Who are you watching this week on the waiver wire?
I said his name already, Josh Allen. And I was watching that game because, of course, it was against my Vikings. So, there was part of me that was like, great. Come on. Of course, he's going to do that against me. But, he's the big one. He is the big one that I looked at of all right, is that a for real thing? Or is that just a, that's what it's going to be. Another one is, and this is one that he's not going to probably be available. If you want him, you'll probably have to trade for him. But if he's on your team, you might want to start putting him in your lineup. And that's the name. I know, Brandon, cover your ears. You're not going to want to hear this. Sammy Watkins. He might have to start becoming a wide receiver 2 or a flex option, because in the last 2 games, I'll take 19.1 or 18.5 from a wide receiver any day. Of course, I would love my Adam Thielen, who had 24.5, but I will also take 18.5 that Sammy Watkins has this week. And especially if Mahomes keeps up his hot hand, Sammy Watkins might be a guy that you have to start putting in your starting lineup.
Hey, you know what? I don't necessarily know if I'm there yet on Sammy Watkins.
Oh, I know how you feel about Sammy Watkins.
I'm just not there on Sammy Watkins yet. He's going to have to do a whole lot more for me to get there. One of the guys for me is Tyler Boyd from Cincinnati. This guy has put up a couple of really good lines the last couple of weeks. 25
points this past week.
I think his through 3 games, he had 3 catches, 26 yards. Then the next game, 6 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. The next game, this past week, 6 catches, 132 yards, and a touchdown. So certainly Andy Dalton is looking at him. A.J. Green also went down with an injury this past week. You got to watch that situation as the week goes on. If A.J. Green is out, Tyler Boyd may be the number 1 wide receiver there for Cincinnati.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
I got one guy that I would pick up if I need a tight end, or not just a tight end, but let's say I might do this in our personal one with the other MVP guys. A guy I might be targeting this week is Dallas Goedert, because the thing I noticed with Wentz being back, Wentz likes the tight end, and with people covering Zach Ertz, the Dallas Goedert 7 receptions for 73 yards might be a good one. So even if he can have that touchdown, have about 13 points he would have had in regular leagues, he had 20.3 in PPR. He might be a guy that you want to target. The guy I want to ask you about, though, is Robert Woods. Only 7.3 week 1, increases his receptions, 14.1 week 2, 33.7 last week. He had 2 touchdowns. Do you go in on Robert Woods, either if he's on your team because he's owned in 88% of leagues, or are you still weary because he is going up against Minnesota this upcoming Thursday?
No, I like Robert Woods. I like Robert Woods a lot. That's actually one of the wide receivers I was targeting over the summer in one of my fantasy drafts.
And you just couldn't get him?
I couldn't get him. I liked him, though. I liked him a lot. I think that his rapport will grow even more now with Jared Goff, and even with so many mouths to feed on that offense, Jared Goff finds a way to feed them all. I mean, he really does. I mean, Cooper Kupp had a great day yesterday. Robert Woods had a great day yesterday. A number of catches for Brandon Cooks. You got Todd Gurley obviously involved. I mean, there's a lot of people to feed over there in LA, but Jared Goff does a really good job of distributing the football, and that's part of the reason why they're so good, because there's not just one guy that a defense has to target in on. It's a number of guys, and that's why I think that Los Angeles. I mean, they're a early Super Bowl pick for me, but I think that that's why they're so good. But Robert Woods, I'm in on Robert Woods. That's for sure.
I got one more for you.
Sure.
And this is a guy, he is playing right now as we speak, but he's blowing it up so far. 3 receptions, 101 yards, a touchdown. Vance McDonald. After this week, do you make a waiver pull on him and just put him on your bench so you maybe have him? Or is this game right here, which could be a good one for him, he's already having a good one, is this just going to be the boom to Vance McDonald and don't even buy in on it? There's a reason why he's only owned in 13% of leagues.
Here's the thing that I worry about. Is it going to be Vance McDonald or is it going to be Jesse James? Who is it? Which week? You know, that I mean, Jesse James just had a week like this last week against the Kansas City Chiefs. But this week, it's McDonald. You know, is it going to go back and forth? Are they going to have weeks like this consistently? Vance McDonald only has the numbers right now because of a 75-yard touchdown catch. Still, it's great. I mean, you can't take it away from him. But other than that, you know, he doesn't have great numbers. You take away the touchdown, he's got 2 catches for, 30 yards. But I think that he's certainly someone that you should put on your radar because Ben Roethlisberger loves to throw the football, and he does like his tight ends. Remember when Heath Miller was there? Heath Miller was a great tight end to own for a number of years because Ben Roethlisberger has a really good rapport with his TEs. So I think that I would say that you wouldn't be necessarily wrong on going and getting Vance McDonald. I don't think it would be a bad play.
I got one more that I would pick up in our league, but he's already owned by Austin in our league. If you do not own this guy and need a wide receiver, go get yourself Geronimo Allison from the Green Bay Packers. Go get you the former Illinois Fighting Illini, G-Mo. And that's because I know he only had 2 catches this week. I know one was for a touchdown, so that's why he's got a lot of points. But 17.9 week 1, 12.4 week 2, 15.6 this week. He's going up against Buffalo next week. Aaron Rodgers loves this kid already. He's got 5, 6, and 2, the 2 being the outlier here with receptions so far this week. This is one where I'm like, he's only owned in 36% of leagues, Brandon. Like, I'm looking at this kid and, like, if our personal league was a PPR, I would go, like, that's the line. If you're not in a PPR, don't go after Gmo because a lot of those are because he's got receptions. This last week was because he had that touchdown. But if you're in a PPR league, go after Gmo because he's getting you the mid-teen points that you might need from the wide receiver position. And if you got a wide receiver from San Francisco, maybe you got a Goodwin. You're like, screw it, I need a wide receiver. Go get a guy who has a competent quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, even a competent quarterback when that quarterback is injured. I mean, there's that.
The other guy for me, the final one for me is Mike Williams from the Chargers. I think that he has been really good so far this season. His volume has not been that great, but in his couple of catches, he's got a couple of TDs. I think he's starting to get a little bit more worked into this offense, and he's making the most of his opportunities. So that's definitely a guy to go look at on the waiver wire.
I got one last one. You said one last one. I've got one last one. Maybe if you got Evan Ingram, you go and get this guy. You need a tight end. I'd pick up Rhett Ellison. He's a guy that I know Evan Ingram. He's an injury right now, MCL. He's week to week. They dodged a bullet to where it wasn't season ending. But Rhett Ellison, he's a guy, got a touchdown this past week. He's going to get the receptions at tight end from Eli Manning with Ingram being out. He could be a guy that, hey, stash away, and maybe in a week or two, maybe even this next week, if you want to be ballsy, play Rhett Ellison, and he'll be a guy that can get you double-digit points in a PPR league.
And Ricky, now my final question. Who would you be looking at that you thought, okay, I had them, they were doing really well, and they just haven't worked out yet to this point? Give me two people. Give me two people that you can think of. So guys that are
on my team that I want to drop.
That are on your team or that you've seen and you're just like, you know what, I really thought that this was going to be a big boom, and so far it's been a bit of a bust.
Well, on our team personally, I'm going to give Didi Westbrook a week or two, and Didi Westbrook may turn out to be one of those guys. I know 1 week isn't too much of one because he had 10 and 17 points, so maybe giving him a week to kind of show me. But on our team, like, maybe it's Ben Watson, but, like, we need a backup tight end, so I'm not going to ready to call him a bust. But for me on my personal team, mainly because we're not PPR in our personal MVP league, Jordan Reed, because he's a guy that this past week got 6 points on my bench. Gronk got 5, so it's like I need a guy that's going to do better at the tight end position. Gronk might be a guy that I try to trade in some cases, but really it's for my personal, it's like I said, it's Jordan Reed and then also Dion Lewis. After that first week, 4 and 3, he's one that I might be getting rid of sooner rather than later. And I hope that Keenan Cole does not turn into one of those guys as well, as I picked him up this past week.
And, I think one of the guys that I'm kind of looking at that, maybe it's not your typical that guy that you look at and go, but Alex Collins isn't necessarily all that great to start. He has 2 touchdowns. He got a touchdown this past week, 68 yards and a touchdown, 3 catches, but for only 6 yards, 12 fantasy points. But he had 5 fantasy points in week 1. He had 8 fantasy points in week 2, 12 in week 3, and this is on CBS fantasy scoring. But this is a guy who at the end of last season was supposed to be this really solid starter, that this was going to be the guy over here. This is who you want to have on your team. He is going to be good. He really hasn't been that guy that I'm really giddy and excited about. So that's one of the guys who I've been kind of disappointed with is Alex Collins there. And then another person that I am just kind of like, I'm not sure what to think here, is actually Royce Freeman. Because in Denver, Royce Freeman was supposed to be the guy who was going to supplant Devontae Booker. He was he had showed so well in the preseason, his skills, and had such a good performance, so many good performances. It's just been, something with now Phillip Lindsay coming on the scene, but then Lindsay getting ejected in the game this past week. And then unfortunately it was a game where they couldn't really run the ball a whole lot because they were down. So that's so far to this point been a little bit of a disappointment. I still think that Freeman can be good. I just it's one of those things where he needs to be given the opportunities to do that.
And also the thing that'll be interesting next week for Royce Freeman owners and Phillip Lindsay owners is they're going up against KC. And if KC jumps up 21-0, you're going to be throwing the ball with Case Keenum. You're not going to be running the ball with Royce Freeman.
You are going to be, you would think, Kansas City's defense is pretty bad. I mean, the reason why that they are where they are right now, the reason why they're 3-0 is because of their offense.
Yeah.
Their defense is crap. It has been shown to be crap, and they give up a lot of points each and every week. Yet, thankfully, and thank Patrick Mahomes, he's been able to put up a ton of points. So that's not necessarily to say that Denver couldn't get back and chip back into the game with the running game. Most likely, yes, you'll be passing, but you could pretty much do anything against Kansas City's defense. It's kind of just open for whatever.
Like, for example, give me you're a Chiefs fan. Who did the Chiefs play this week?
They played Denver.
They played Denver. Did they play Denver this week?
Oh, no. I thought you said who do they play? I'm like, you just told us.
No,
Denver.
like who did they play?
They played San Francisco.
Week? They played San Francisco. So
they won 38-27.
No, but what I'm looking up is, all right, so the thing that kind of crosses my point here is maybe they do have a good week because the Chargers, their running backs combined had 51.3 points, and Pittsburgh in week 2 had 24.1 against the Chiefs defense. And then Breida, he had 14.7. I know he's had the injury as well, but I mean, the only thing I worry about with Royce Freeman and Lindsay is that the Broncos get down because of this offense with the Chiefs. They go up like 28-21-0, and then Denver abandons the run game because they have to try to get back into the game. That's the only thing I worry. But you look at the fantasy numbers through week 1, week 2, and even a little bit of week 3, the Chiefs have been susceptible to giving up points to the running back. So really it's whatever your gut feeling is with Royce Freeman and Lindsay coming into this week against the Chiefs.
Ricky, anything else to add this week?
No. The only thing is that Antonio Brown owners should be happy. He has a touchdown in the game.
He does, and Ryan Fitzpatrick owners should not be. He has 3 interceptions.
Well, he's helping us out because he's keeping even with Juju Smith, I think.
And he just threw a big pass, 51 yards to Mike Evans down to the 5. Let's hope that they don't give it to Peyton Barber.
Juju's got 6.7. Fitzpatrick's got 5.9. We are still leading 125-117.
All right, folks, that is going to do it for us this week. Again, some final things here at the end. You can support this podcast and all podcasts on MVP by going and becoming a patron on patreon.com. You can also go to mostvaluablepodcast.com and you can get an MVP t-shirt and then wear it all around the world because you should then go travel. Because
the world or the wild?
The world.
Okay.
I'm going to say it correctly. So, again, check out mostvaluablepodcast.com and then go to iTunes and give us that 5-star rating. We are hoping that this podcast, What's Your Fantasy, will soon be approved and up, and you can go and do that for us. But until then, go and do it for all other podcasts on MVP. There are many more good ones to check out. Again, thank you so much for watching and listening today and this week on What's Your Fantasy. For Ricky Widmer, I'm Brandon Swanson saying so long, everybody. Have a great rest of your week and have a wonderful Week 4 NFL experience.